Who want to? Hey, can we get the logistics going first?
This is logistics. I like your
shit.
headset though.
Appreciate that.
Oh, good. How you feel?
Sports Talk 980.
You know, doing that physical therapy, so it's coming along.
You know what's funny? It's like you just finished a game, and now you're doing an interview.
Hey, these are the same headsets.
That's what you look like. You look like you're doing an interview and everything.
You just dropped 20 and 10. How do you feel tonight?
No, boy.
I had my Wheaties today, so I'm feeling great.
I guess I'm Kenny Smith and Marlon's Chuck.
I mean, look, Kenny Smith got them. No, I ain't gonna say nothing about that, man. He good, man.
Yeah, I'm just picking Kenny. He's faster out the group
because he's faster.
Right.
I ain't seen the jet run in a long time.
Hey,
that jet maybe
he run every time he run up to that board on TNT.
Yeah.
Anywho, welcome back to another episode of Unbiased Sports Talk. Okay, we got a good one here. We're gonna talk about Mr. Jerry Jones just a little bit, but we all really want to dive into Mr. Deion Sanders. You know, getting a new job in Colorado, but there's a little bit more to unravel when it comes to that because I don't know if many people remember I said a certain something about HBCUs, and I'm ready to have that conversation. So let's go ahead and start about Jerry Jones. So, what's your thoughts about Jerry before I start talking? Because I'm gonna start saying some shit.
Are you referring more so to this picture that's surfaced of him at 15 years old in this racially motivated act? Go ahead.
I would say mostly. What's your thoughts to people's reaction to the picture?
The picture, right? All right. So in this culture right now, they're essentially saying no time in your life is safe from anything you've done. So regardless of what he's done for the past 65 years since that picture, they're saying all that's erased now because this picture. Well, somebody might say that, but at the same time, I like to see what's the change behavior. Is there change behavior? Is there growth within this man?
Yeah.
What is being shown to us now or through the course of his lifetime rather than this point at 15 years old? Because a lot of people will be canceled if you saw a camera on them at 15 years old. A lot of people will not have anything in the spotlight. Charlemagne always says, Malcolm Little would never become Malcolm X if it was camera phones back then. Detroit Red would never become Malcolm X because he'd have been canceled. He'd have been locked up. So what is he doing now? Is he giving back to his communities? Is he employing people of color? Is he, what is he doing? Is he still, hanging in these crowds? That's my question. Because it's not about what you did at 15. Because nobody's making smart decisions at 15. He went with the crowd. I don't know what this man actually said at that moment. He could have just been dragged down there. I'm giving the benefit of the doubt. I don't like to do that for everybody. But at the same time, if all your friends are saying, oh, we got to go down here and do this, they're doing it. 15 years old, no one's fighting their friends.
True. I'll say I don't disagree with that sentiment that we're so quick to cancel people these days based off of one mistake. For example, Will Smith, they ready to cancel the man after stop. Granted, it was a bad thing, but again, let's take the man's history, totality of everything he's done. So I think some of it has to do with several things we've seen Jerry do or not do over the course of several years within the NFL as to why I think some people are just trying to point to this as reinforcement to their preconceived notions of Jerry. Because again, there was different things happen, obviously, when I always forget this man's name when I want to say it. 49ers.
Colin Kaepernick?
Colin, yes. Kaepernick. And that whole thing, and then what he said to his players and whatnot about they're going to not take a knee and all that. So I think it's a combination of several things that have happened as to why people are just using this as leverage with that. But I think what in particular LeBron James brought up was just reinforcing Kyrie's point of have the same energy that you have with certain issues, like what happened with Kyrie in the Jews, as you do when it has Black people involved. In particular, this picture, right? And his point was no one asked him about it, even though they asked him about everything else, politics, football, all of that. They know he's a Cowboys fan. Still, no questions were asked. It was whatever Jerry said, and that was the end of it after a couple of days. Whereas they harped on Kyrie for weeks. So I agree in that sentiment of keep the same energy for all issues when it comes to discrimination of people in general, not just Blacks, but whoever it might be. The media should have that same energy. So I think that is where I agree with folks pointing to this as an example. However, I don't think we should condemn a person off of one action, but look at the totality of what they've done.
Before you hop in, Ron, they've already shown us they're not going to keep the same energy. You see how quickly we glanced over Brett Favre.
Yep.
I saw maybe Shannon Sharp touch on the whole Brett Favre issue and a couple of podcasts. Outside of that, there was no real media coverage on Brett Favre stealing millions from the state for a college that already has millions. But go ahead, Ron. My bad.
I mean, that's a good point. To answer the question though, I think with this situation, people's reactions also is going to be based on us the people, but the players on how they're going to go about it as well. I mean, we did a pod about players still being activists, right? And whether they're just doing it for a fad or right now. I honestly think this is the perfect time for players to be activists on certain things, right? Like, you mean to keep the conversation going. Like whatever press conference you're in or anything, you throw Jerry name in there, you throw Brett Favre's name in there, because it's one of those things where, like, let's keep the same energy. The energy that you have for Kyrie and stuff, the man's not even on my team, and you're asking me questions about him. You feel me? So, but when it comes to Jerry and all these other situations, and I'm a hierarchy, and I'm referring to LeBron and everything, you don't ask me those questions. So people like LeBron, honestly, keep the same energy. Don't just do it once. Keep the same energy to promote change. The same energy where I see guys talking about LeBron being better than Michael Jordan, you know what I mean? You're keeping that energy up. Keep the same energy when it comes to people like Brett Favre and Jerry Jones. Now, as far as the picture, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't really think too much of the picture because, to be honest with you, it could be any one of us. If a picture got up and everything, and the people looking at it different, right? But when LeBron touched on it, it was like, he makes a great point, because all of our work field, right? And I used to say this I still say this to my clients. It's funny, but it's the truth. I had a conversation with one of my clients, and I was saying, I find it really interesting when Drake or Diddy does something, y'all ask me questions. But when Justin Timberlake or Justin Bieber does something, y'all ask me questions about it. But it's the same to me. Like they're on the same channel because the same news.
In a way, yes. So, but at the same time, they can say it's culture as well, different cultures. Yeah. So they see a Black player and they initially think you're going to relate to the hip hop culture more easily than you do the pop world, because they consider, even as hard as Justin Bieber fights to be R&B, they could forever consider him pop. Same with Justin Timberlake. So yeah, but I get your point. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know. I that was good. You mean I didn't get hit with one of those though, because they don't mind asking me about Trump and Bush and everything when it comes to election time.
But again, that's culture though. Politics doesn't have a culture. Like I said, politics has personal interests.
Good point.
I'll say this.
People vote where their interest is at. Yeah.
I'll say this one other thing about the picture, because since you brought it back up, Ron. One reason why I didn't take issue with it is because that was the time back then. Like, most of the white community was participating in events like that. So it's not abnormal that someone like Jerry Jones would be participating in something like that. Now, the thing though is I was kind of disappointed in his reply about it and not really taking full ownership and speaking on how he's grown for that. He was kind of like, I was curious, I was just there. Like, that doesn't denounce what was going. You didn't address what happened. You don't denounce what happened and say you have grown and you're now more knowledgeable and realize that was wrong to do. I would have liked to heard something like that for him. Then I can be more on your side if you came with a response like that. But since he did not, that was where I was kind of let down with Jerry. Not the fact that there's a picture of him doing something like that back in the time when that was the time. It's like getting mad about people having slaves back when they were slaves. That's what they did back then. Doesn't make it right. But what are you now saying about it?
But that's his best answer not to get canceled. And plus, going back to this, right? And I can't wait for our other callers to kind of get on here so we can talk. We can talk about Kyrie. We're not talking about the Kyrie right now, folks, because we need him on the show. We need him on the show. But the thing about Jerry, this is the thing I noticed about these reporters. They ask certain questions to certain people, but they don't drive the needle to those certain people as well. Certain people also. Like people like Kyrie, they're gonna drive the needle. People like Jerry Jones, that I heard the questions being asked, they're not gonna drive the needle. Just going like,
some people though, they feel that they're not gonna press the button. Like, think about certain coaches, like Bill Belichick. They don't press the button with Bill Belichick no more because they know what kind of answer they're going to get. When they ask certain players certain questions, they know they're going to get a rise. They're going to get more of an in-depth answer. If you ask Kyrie something, most times out of none, he's going to say something that he either feels profoundly about, or he's going to put a narrative that is more so his truth out there. Some people just give the breeze over answer like Jerry Jones. And as a reporter will see that, they'll say, okay, he's not giving me anything. Some people, they will try to dive deeper, but then also they realize Jerry Jones might know my boss. He's going to call up and I can't be at the game for him.
Boom, there you go. That's exactly what I get to. Boom.
But not only that, they just want something interesting to write about. So they know someone like Kyrie is going to give them some talking points, something they can write about. Whereas, like you said, Bill Belichick's not going to give them anything. So why even bother, right? So they're looking for things that are going to spark emotion out of people, create conversation, because that sells paper, no longer papers, but that gets clicks and views, right? Yeah. So that's what they're looking for. That's why they go after the players more times than not, because the players aren't as careful with their words as some of these other folks are.
Right.
Clickbait is 100% a thing. Because, like I said, you brought up the fact of him telling his players they can't kneel. You got to think too. He's given the narrative now that he's America's team, and what's America say? America's behind the flag. And what's disrespectful to the flag? Kneeling, allegedly, according to a subculture of people who have put that narrative out that kneeling is somehow disrespectful. But like I brought back in the past, they love Game of Thrones, and what you do when you surrender, you take the knee. That's the most non-aggressive thing you can do. You know, but like I said, they don't want to talk about people's reason and why they do things. They take it and run with it. Like Kyrie was just putting out info. He didn't say what anything said. He said, "This is information I found," and oh man, I didn't transition things, but even with Jerry, he's good. He's saying in his defense, this is not me talking to him. He's like one of them children in those photos of races berating black children trying to enter a school. They got their babies with them. They got 3, 4, or 5-year-olds watching them block kids from getting into school. So to E's point, that was a culture that they indoctrinated kids into. They could either choose to go with it or they can run away from that. So the question is, since that photo, Did you go with the flow like you did in that photo, or did you run away from it? Did you fight to make change?
And to be clear to the audience, when I first saw the picture, I'm not gonna lie to you, I wasn't awake when I saw it. You know, like you see something, but you still scroll. I was like, okay, this is a gray and white picture. Boom, I scrolled by. It didn't bring to my attention until the news came on. And even still, it was one of those things where I was looking at it and it's just like, okay, it's a picture. I'm like, shit, like this plain picture, I could get caught up in. Like, whew. But then when LeBron said what he said, I was like, you know what? That's a great point. And you said it at the greatest spot to say it. And I like how he handled it too, where he said it and then he told them not to ask him any questions and he walked off. I like that. I like that. Mr. Primetime is in Colorado, everybody.
Mr. Primetime.
Mr.
You know what?
Coach Prime.
Coach
the thing
Prime.
is, I hope that they can give him what they promised him. Because they promised him the $5 million and all his coaching staff to come with them, and everybody's getting the proper paychecks that they've been working for these past 3 years plus. Like I said, this man has put in the limelight the funding HBCUs get and what can and can't be done. He's put Jackson State on Sports Illustrated. Leverage relationships. What they say, they had the second most uniform changes, only second to Oregon. You know how many uniforms you gotta have to be second to Oregon? Make sure these boys were fed, revamp their whole locker room situation, their living situation, all things that universities should have been doing. Where is the tuition money going? Where is the state funding going? If they get it, where are all these things going? Like I said, the man gave up half his salary every year. More than that, more than likely, reportedly had. But then, of course, he gave more. Got these kids on flights. Got them suits and jackets. Got them everything they needed to look good, feel good, play good. He brought a winning culture to this school. And the school really didn't even want to re-sign him because they figured it was a sure-end deal because all the things he did for the school already. They didn't feed back into Dion like he was feeding into the school. So he even said in the beginning, if the offer comes through and it's right, he's gonna take it because at the same time, he's not just looking out for Dion. Dion didn't even have to coach. People keep glossing over that. He didn't have to coach. He chose to coach and he showed y'all what can be done. He gave us a blueprint for all HBCUs of what can be done and how a coach can be built. But at the same time, I kind of like what he's doing. He's taking players from the HBCU to a D1 program, and he's showing you that these players are just as good, if not better. Because that's always going to be the argument. Oh, they went to an HBCU. Yeah, they're going against all other Black kids rather than a mixed bag of people. It's like people don't realize there are HBCU graduates or attendees that are in the NFL and thriving, that have thrived. The number one receiver in numbers wise all time, Jerry Rice, HBCU. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Darius Leonard, HBCU. Strip sack leader all time, Robert Mathis, HBCU. The list goes on and on. There's so many guys who went to HBCU because these big PWIs, predominantly white institutions, did not give them opportunities. Yeah, they might have had to pay their first year because there's no funding. But then that goes back into Dion's point. Where the funding goes and how the school uses it, it's usually not going to be on athletics first. But then you got to see, when you put back into your program, look what happens. How quickly that program turn around. So I don't blame the man for going to a program that's going to give him the resources he needs and is asking for, not only for himself, but for his coaching staff and for his players.
Go ahead, bro.
Go ahead. My bad. Go ahead. I'll save myself for last.
All right. So I think twofold. One, I don't take any issue with Dion because one, I don't know Dion's internal plan for his long-term plan for himself, right? I don't know what that is. So I can't speak on if that's right or not right for him. Only he knows that in his family, which I'm sure he's discussed that with them. But I think the question is, did he, I guess, fulfill his promises to HBCUs, in particular Jackson State? I think that's what people are trying to wrestle with and trying to figure out, do they believe he did fulfill his promises or not? Now, if you take a look at his first press conference with that, I think he did, right? He talked about bringing attention. He talked about improving the program, number one. They were in, like, I think, last place or something like that. And shining a light on HBCUs as a whole. I think he did those types of things because you have now but you've seen an increase of HBCU applications to all HBCUs, right? You've got these guys being, he was on 60 Minutes. You saw the media's covering them. They're interviewing. People are talking about it on social media as far as these teams go. With HBCUs, it's a discussion more so than it has been in the past. So clearly he's brought attention to it. Clearly he's raised the perception of Jackson State and all the things like you just spoke about that he brought there with his relationships with the uniforms and all that type of jazz. So I think he's done a phenomenal job with Jackson State and fulfilled the promises he stated in the very beginning. I think where people take issue is when he later on had several conversations and clips of him talking about the legacy of HBCUs, and he's all about promoting that and lifting them up. And I think hearing that all the time, people kind of got the notion of him having a long-term commitment to HBCUs. And so I think that is where some people are feeling betrayed in him with the quote unquote first opportunity jumping ship, which I don't think that was ever Dion's intention was to stay long term. I mean, you look at his career in the NFL, he was in how many different teams? He was playing 2 different sports. So he's always tried to challenge himself. And I don't see his coaching career being any different. He's probably not going to stay at Colorado either. He's going to take this opportunity, uplift his coaching staff, put his own son in position to get drafted along with those other players that he's taking up there, and then look for another opportunity either within college or probably even the NFL. So that's why I don't have any issue with what he's done. And I think ultimately, going back to the HBCUs, we as a people need to look at what are we doing to help HBCUs? Because this man clearly did something and has shown you how to do something. So are you even donating to your alma mater, all the folks that went to HBCUs? I think they have some of the least donations, like 11%, something crazy. So are you donating? Are you giving back besides just going to homecoming, participating in the parties? Are you actually volunteering, giving your resources and services to your own alma mater, let alone any HBCU that's near you? So I think there's a lot that we can do as a community to continue the energy that he's given to the whole community. It's not just on him as one man. It takes all of us.
Yeah. That's it. I don't see a promise that he has not fulfilled. There have been more HBCU games broadcasted.
How do we know that?
It's on ESPN.
Than ever before? Or like
in this calendar year, there were more HBCU games broadcasted than previous years. When's the last time you saw an HBCU on Sports Illustrated?
That's probably, I don't know the exact numbers, but you're probably right.
When is the top overall? When is the top overall?
I've seen them before.
I mean, I've seen them on TV for sure.
Yes,
yeah, of course you've seen them on TV. Yeah, but at the same time, you saw it more.
Yeah, I think there was definitely
prime
more
games.
coverage.
You might have saw 1 or 2 the entire season.
Because I know several people there. I've heard them talk about. I didn't watch a single HBCU game until Dion went to Jackson State. You had people literally streaming and watching every single game while he was there. So I'm just using that example to show that there's so many people that he brought that are now paying attention to HBCUs surely off of him being at Jackson State. So that just talks to his level of impact that he had just by being there for the few years he was.
Like I said, the man did nothing but bring to that university, and that university in particular did not give back to him. Like I said, they wouldn't even, they just figured he was coming back. They didn't re-sign him. They didn't give him his bonuses guarantee for winning. None of that. He was going to give it right back. But the fact that they didn't give it to him in the first place.
Here's the thing about Deion. Well, any man that's going to do what you need to do for yourself to take care of your family, I got no problem with that. But when you're trying to sell a dream to others and stuff, that's a little bit of a problem that I have, because it's a deeper conversation than what people think when it comes to not just like a ball club. You're talking about a university when it comes to change, when it comes to getting a kid to come to your school. Because like I had this conversation before, if you put a DC kid at an HBCU in Philly, did you really take him out of his element? And most time the answer is no, you did not. So, because the other thing you also have to keep in mind is this too, it says of his history at being at HBCUs, despite the fact of Jackson State robbing him as far as like the presidents and all that other stuff, but him and his sons and all that were getting robbed at the school.
Like I said, that's the school not giving back to him, not taking care of him.
No. He was getting robbed. Like someone was stealing his wallet.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
It has nothing.
Why isn't there staff there?
Huh?
Like I said, why is it like stuff available to them? But either way, his coaches are not getting paid.
No, I
if
know
you got a
that.
staff,
No,
I'm saying, but
that's not my dropping point. That's not my dropping point.
All right, but you say he sold a dream. He didn't sell a dream. He gave a dream, and he gave a blueprint to what other people could do.
Yeah, I'm about to say, where did he say he was going to stay?
I see you winding up down there, Mo. What you got?
Okay.
I always enter the chat when Ron is on. Man,
so late.
So now he's selling the dream. So a high school coach, a high school private school coach, right? He decides to take on this endeavor of going to an HBCU. What was that? 3 years ago?
Yep.
Right. All right. So he decides to do this. His son could go to Florida Atlantic, a bunch of other Florida schools to go play quarterback. He brings his son with him. He has a son at South Carolina, major Power 5 SEC. He brings him along to show that he's committed to this process. He could have left his kids in those fairy tale situations. He brings them to Jackson, Mississippi.
Oh, wait.
Right? Jackson, you're talking about years of bad football at Jackson State.
You do know Shiloh's stuck now.
Huh?
You know Shiloh's stuck now. You know that, right? He's stuck now.
Stuck?
Can you hear him? Can y'all hear him?
Nah, I lost his audio.
By accident.
Why is he stuck?
There you go.
You transferred down. You forgot the transfer portal, how the transfer thing works?
That doesn't apply like that anymore.
So he could transfer right up and play automatically.
He can transfer. That's what the transfer portal is for. As long as
but transfer portal, when you transfer from
Shiloh
one to another Power 5.
Shiloh's been in school for 4 years at the very least. He should at least have graduated. So he should be a graduate transfer.
That doesn't mean that he can play automatically, though.
Yes, he can. He's a graduate transfer. That's completely different. He's completed his degree. He's completed his.
Who do you know that came from a lower tier school and came up and played automatically as a graduate?
If you're asking me to name a person for you, I cannot. I can just tell you what the rules are. He graduates. If he graduates, he can transfer. That tier stuff don't have anything to do with anything anymore. I got kids that are at Bowie. I got a kid at Bowie State that's about to transfer to the D1.
Is he going sick?
Huh?
Never mind. Go on. Continue.
Never mind the point. The point is What does Black America want from this man, Deion Sanders? He came to Jackson, Mississippi. They said he was averaging like $4 million of revenue a game last season. He brings notoriety. He brings exposure. He brings a lot of money into the city, into the town. And like Marlon was saying, like, that's the thank you he gets. His kids getting robbed, him getting robbed, things of that nature. But I'm not want to take it there. Let's just keep it to football, right? He came in, he took a program that was underperforming. He flipped that program. He brought them recruits that they would have never otherwise seen, right? He got HBCU football on CBS, guys. HBCU football on CBS on a Saturday afternoon, a time that's usually preserved for a Power 5 school. You know how much notoriety that brought that school? You know how many people didn't know what Jackson State was, let alone Jackson, Mississippi? You're talking about a part of the country that people want to forget about. Whether you want to forget about it because of the slave history with it or just the poverty and all this other stuff. You're talking about a place that people want to forget about. He brought a lot of notoriety there. He used a lot of his own money and a lot of the things that he was funding. He left Jackson State a lot better than they were. They got a facility in which
he paid for.
He helped pay for. He helped pay for
by donating, like you said, with the salary.
With his salary that he helped expedite so that they could have. Yep. This man got a facility built in 3 years from the time he got there and actually lived to see it open at an HBCU. We've seen buildings at Morgan take longer to get built. True or false? We've seen buildings at Morgan take longer to get built.
That's on there.
Right.
Second only to Oregon in uniforms at an HBCU.
He used his personal connection with Under Armour, his personal apparel deal with Under Armour to influence them to take on Jackson State and issue them at least 15 uniforms in the course of the last 3 years.
I have a question.
Multiple helmets. If you've been to underserved football programs, they recycle those helmets.
You've been
he got them multiple different kind of helmets. And you know, as a football coach, what do these kids fall in love with? They fall in love with the facilities and the jerseys.
Yeah.
Facilities and jerseys. So he's provided both of those to Jackson State. He's provided winning football. He's provided elite talent over there. He's filled the stands. He got them turf on the field. Like, he's brought a lot to this program.
Did you ultimately hear what I said? I didn't say nothing about what
you said. He sold a dream. Why is it that he's selling a dream? Like, I'm gonna put it like this: if you take on a job, right, Ron? You take on a job, and while you're in the job, you're performing very, very well, right? And another job offers you a lot more money than you were making before.
Am I selling dreams to other private schools? I'm selling a dream to my school.
Why is he selling the dream? He did his job. His job was to uplift the team.
That's what y'all gotta listen. That's what y'all gotta keep up, because I've been listening to this man do interviews on I Am Athlete, making cases about why kids should go to HBCUs and stuff, and all these other things and everything. But the problem is this.
Does that not make it true? It doesn't make it true.
Follow me.
Does it not make it true that other kids should still go to HBCUs whether he's the coach or not?
Yeah, there's no problem with that. There's no problem with a kid going to an HBCU. The problem is, like, this is just me, I'm really stretching this conversation out because of being involved in the HBCU and seeing how things really work and everything. There's one thing to sell a dream for your school, because we know you have the power to do that. You had the power of that when you was in high school. Did he not? What you just said. I witnessed him too. Like, he brought everything that a kid loves, which is exposure. He did everything. Got the Wallows, got Young Dolph. He got all the people that bring attention to his school, that brings no supplies of doing those certain things, right? So when you're seeing that, right, now you're asking yourself this: why am I going to go to this other school when I'm not getting the same exposure as Jackson State? Because again, when he started his conversation about this, he said HBCUs. He didn't say Jackson State.
So is he not supposed to use his pedestal at Jackson State to try to influence other HBCUs to do the same work that he's done or something similar in order to make this widespread? Like, I don't understand that rhetoric from you.
He gave him a blueprint.
He said, look, all HBCUs. Don't get me wrong.
Everybody got behind.
And let me tell you what the major part of the blueprint is. The communication was to these people that are dying and they're bending over backwards to go be assistant coaches and position coaches at these Power Fives rather than using their tutelage and using that at an HBCU and being the head man. That's the problem. He's trying to encourage everybody. Listen, there's one Deion. There's one Deion in terms of personality, in terms of what he did on the field, all of that. So you're not going to get that at every HBCU. But what he's trying to do is influence the other guys behind him to want to pony up and say, you know what, not even in terms of money, but like in terms of I played in the NFL or I have this status and I want to come coach at the HBCU because the opportunities at the Power Fives are not there. And if he can get more guys that have done it at the highest level to come to the HBCUs, it'll give them instant credibility. I can't understand how you are arguing this point. It's really baffling me at this point. Like,
well, I think you missed what I was talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But that's exactly what I think most people have an issue with is what Ron's talking about. This is the first time we've seen this, right? So everything you're talking about, what Deion did, he gave the blueprint and all that, with nobody truly, and this is what I said, nobody knows what's going on in Deion's head, what his plan is for the future. This was probably always his plan. He probably never had a plan, obviously, to stay at Jackson State for like 40, 50 years, like some of the older
That was never going to
coaches.
happen.
That was never right.
He said in the beginning.
His career has never been like that. But like what Ron's talking about, I think most people heard him talking and thought he was going to give a little bit longer commitment because they know there's no other Deion and nobody can do what he's doing. But this is what I said. That's all fair and good. However, to your point, we as a community have to realize we all play a part. We all can do something to make these schools better and not just look to a celebrity like Deion to improve. Because exactly what Ron was talking about, what some of you guys brought up, players are getting robbed. Why are we robbing our own folks? Because obviously you know who's doing it. So why are we robbing these guys who are trying to bring light to your community and money into your community, giving you something good and positive to be happy about? And you want to rob these guys.
Right? We knew that this wasn't going to be no 40-year commitment, right, from Deion, right?
Correct.
But if Deion can influence,
some of us knew because some folks thinking he was going to.
He said in the beginning. He loved it.
Whoever didn't know that is a plum.
Exactly.
Which
is why there's no argument.
Right. So I think Deion's whole plan was to show what can be done at these schools if we have the proper resources, right? And I think it's Deion. Okay. Let me take Ron's point. If he stayed longer, let's say he stayed longer, he stayed 10, 15 years instead of the 40, right? Let's make it manageable. Let's say he stayed 10 years. That's not my point. Let's say he stayed 10 years. Like, for the people that's out there talking about he didn't stay long enough, he can stay there 10 years and he would only benefit his HBCU. Alabama State and them, they still traveling by bus. They don't have the United flights he has. He can't give the sponsorships that he has to the whole SWAC. He can't.
I would slightly argue against that though, a little bit, because if you take a look at this, for example, SEC, right? Everybody want to play in the SEC. Why? Competition. So if he's at Jackson State and he's bringing influence and viewership over to Jackson State and top tier players like these top recruits, then hey, if I go to this other school, I can compete against these guys. I can get exposure if I can't get over to one of these other schools. So I think it would still increase, maybe not to the same level as Jackson State, but there would still be influence at the other schools with, like right now, people are applying to go to HBCUs just to go to school, right? So you're seeing an increase strictly off of him doing what he did at Jackson State for that. So I think there will be a positive impact for the other schools' football programs as well.
So let me stop you. During his 3-year tenure, how many other 5-stars signed at another HBCU? That wasn't Jackson State. We don't know the number, right?
Right.
We're going to say closer to 0 than 2.
Fair.
Right? Okay. So he was there for 3 years. He's the one, he's getting the kids to come to him. He's not getting the kids to go to the other HBCUs. So all he's going to do is create a powerhouse that's going to steamroll the rest of the SWAC, and nobody else is getting better. But if I can influence guys like me, Eddie Georges, the Dominique Rodgers-Cromarties, right? He got Hugh Jackson at Grambling. If I can influence these NFL guys to stop chasing these NFL jobs, come down here, lay the foundation because you worked at the highest level already. That's how you get streamlined success, because then everybody has connections. Because in the same time that he's been at Jackson State, Eddie George has been at Tennessee State 1 year shorter, and they don't get near the same notoriety. They don't have near the same amount of players. They don't have near the same amount of funding, not near the same amount of anything. And Eddie George was a very talented person, but he doesn't have that Deion effect, right? He doesn't. Deion is bigger than life. There's not too many of those, right?
Go ahead, Ron.
But I got a question for y'all. What conference is North Dakota State in?
Who knows?
And that's a problem. Because you know how long you know how long they've been winning?
Yes.
And they're the same, they're the same level as Jackson State.
They're the Alabama of the 1AA of the FCS.
But here's my ultimate thing, right? And this is nothing about Deion no more, is this, because I think people need to get a reminder about this too, especially if you've been through. I'm a college football junkie. I'll be real with you. So you gotta keep up with history about this, right? At one point in time, they were supposed to move Hampton up. At one point in time, they were supposed to move South Carolina State up because how much they was really beating on people's ass. All to the point of this, right? If you're not winning, you will not be on air on TV. It's just that simple. And especially if you're not winning for years. Now, again, when it comes now, let me get back to Deion. Now, Deion, honestly, I wouldn't stay either.
Before you get to Deion, what was the point of that comment? Because it didn't stick. I think you think that was a landmine and it didn't blow up.
No, I'm just saying this. It's getting off the whole this black thing in the sense of like, okay, I'm gonna talk about this and everything, but this happens on all levels. Truth be told,
it does. Like you mentioned, North Dakota State, right?
Yeah.
We didn't say that FCS is a problem. We know that HBCUs are disproportionately marginalized because of us. We're not talking about the entire level of that whole entire level of football. We're talking about strictly HBCUs. North Dakota State ain't got no other team. North Dakota State is who they are because all the funding goes. It's the one school in North Dakota. It's the one school in that side. North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, all of that. They go there. They'd rather go there than go to Wyoming in the Big Sky.
So you don't think the other schools have a defunding too?
Who?
Like a Robert Morris.
Robert Moore. You talking about these private institutions that cost $40,000, $50,000 to come? They can set aside some money with each student paying $50,000 to go to school there. I got a kid at Robert Morris right now.
But we're talking about the
scholarship.
We're talking
from high school.
But we're talking about the football program. I'm not talking about the university itself.
Right.
But you're
talking about these private white institutions that have a different kind of funding. You want to talk about
boosters.
Funding? They come from their people. Our people.
Alumni.
Listen, man, I get mails. I've been getting mail. I graduated college, 16 years ago?
Still getting mail.
12 years ago. We graduated college 12 years ago. Every year I get an envelope talking about donate. Man, every year I toss that thing in the trash as fast as I see it. We don't give money back to our schools. Before Deion got to Jackson State, man, them stands was empty. And I'm talking about before they added the addition to the stadium. They were empty. They didn't go back to go watch those games. Nobody was back there buying stuff in the streets around there. It's different. Like those, you're talking about white PWIs, even though they're lower level, they're not FCS. They're still PWIs that get funded tremendously from their alumni, their boosters, the local community, which we don't do. I'm not taking no money from my check when I'm still paying student loans from college and giving it back to you. I'm sorry.
So here's the thing, though. The same schools that we're talking about, are they winning? No matter what funding they're doing, are they winning?
But what advantage do they have? They're
No,
not.
not no buts. Answer the question, because
Are they
again,
winning?
I'm not talking about
I guess
funding.
I guess.
I never brought anything about funding. I'm getting you into the.
Are they winning what, Ron? Ron, because that's a loaded question. Are they winning what?
Are they winning ball games? Because that's ultimately.
Everybody can't go to a bowl game. It's in the FCS is only 4. And so on their level, it's going to be minimal too.
Listen, you always got a response. Listen, are they winning ball games? Not bowl games, ball games. At the end of the day, when it comes to these kids going to these certain schools and everything, because a lot of people forgot about the quarterback from Hawaii who broke records, Colt Brennan.
Colt Brennan, he washed out in the NFL.
But it was FS.
No, but
it was FCS.
Yep.
They were Mountain West.
But follow me this though. At the end of the day, when it comes to these programs and everything, they're going to look at your competitors. They're going to look at your competitors, and they're going to measure you up from there.
Yeah.
Whether it's an HBCU, whether it's a private school, all those certain things. Because that was my ultimate thing. Because when Deion got the job at Jackson State, it to me, it was no surprise that he was going to get guys. It's Deion. Deion's going to get guys. Now, when you're sitting here trying to say that, you're going to help HBCUs and everything, and that factor, like,
But
did he not?
You asked me, are they winning? You asked me, are they winning ball games, right? You mentioned Robert Morris, right? Are they winning ball games? Let's go see what what conference this is. This is, I don't know.
But ain't that a problem that you got to look it up, though? What's the point, E? Why he does so? He's Google.
Well, I'll say this to all that. To your point about winning, here's what I'll say. Number one.
So you're saying winning is what's putting them on the map? Because I'm not understanding your logic.
No.
They're not winning either. These conferences suck. Maybe like 2 teams in these conferences. Everybody else is trash.
I think his point is, if you're winning and you're going against top tier competition, you're going to continue to get more money, better players. You're going to, like an Alabama, SEC. So
Robert Morris is not seeing any top tier talent.
Either way, here's what I got to say about bring it back to Deion.
Those guys, they're going on to become doctors and lawyers somewhere, guys. Those guys ain't going to the NFL. They're playing Bucknell, Lehigh.
Hold on. Let me tell you this. So with Deion going to Colorado, I think that's number one, probably one of the best places he could have gone, right? Because he has nowhere to go but up. Number two, here's what I say about what we're all talking about as far as HBCUs and what people perceive about them. I think Deion, because he left there and he's bringing some of the HBCU players there, he has to win in order for people not to continue to have the perception that HBCUs are lesser than. When it comes to football,
if he wins with the players he brings over too,
right? That's what I'm saying. Wins with these players, it will continue to amplify. Listen to me. Let me finish. I believe if he wins there with this, it will continue what he's already started at Jackson State and getting people to believe in HBCUs. But if he goes over to Colorado, and he starts losing and never improves, and he doesn't have a similar impact like he did at Jackson State, they're going to see he only did that because he was at the HBCU. They have lesser competition. All the stereotypes we've been hearing about people at HBCUs in the football program.
I believe that to be true, but that's not all his burden.
No. I don't. I'm just saying that he can continue the progress he has started with HBCUs and changing the narrative if he continues to win. That's all I'm saying.
I see Deion. They're 1-11 this year. If Deion being there and bringing in kids in this transfer portal, I don't know if you guys know how this transfer portal works, and people seeing what he did at Jackson State. Deion's about to have a team full of upperclassmen this season ready to compete somewhat. They can win 6 games. If they can win 6 games, they make it to a regular bowl game. I'm not talking about a New Year's Eve bowl. They're going to make it to a regular bowl game. There's a lot of 6-6 teams that make it to bowl games. Your Old Dominions, your William and Marys of that nature, like to talk about it at that level, right? Like even in the Sun Belt, the Sun Belt Conference, the Appalachian states and all that, they're typically the top of the Sun Belt Conference. Now Coastal Carolina's up there, but you have your Louisiana Monroes, you know what I mean? You have your Texas State. You have these schools that are always in the middle. It's a whole bunch of schools in the middle. That's why bowl eligibility is only 6 wins. I think we're making winning this thing that is like incredible in college. Outside of the top 25, a lot of these teams suck. A lot of these teams suck in these major conferences. They're all like 6-5, 7-5, 6-6, 4-8. Like, it's not a whole conference of winning. Even in the Pac-12, you look at the Pac-12 this year, you have Oregon, USC, and Utah, right? And Utah. The rest of the conference is trash. Oregon State is like middle of the pack. UCLA, middle of the pack. And they're prestigious white institutions that have plenty of money. UCLA has enough money for everybody. And they can't field a good program. So like this idea that all of these schools are winning, it's not a lot of schools winning. It's not a lot of schools winning. You can look at any conference list you want, any major conference. Majority of the teams do not win 6 games. Majority of the teams don't win 6 games.
Are we talking about currently?
Name me a conference, Ron. Name me a conference. Just name any random conference. Even in the SEC. Even in the SEC, once you get past Alabama, LSU, Ole Miss is trash. Georgia, Ole Miss is trash. Mississippi State is middle of the pack. Florida, some years up.
Are we talking about currently? Are we just talking about?
I'm talking about today. I'm talking about in general. Most conferences are middle of the pack outside the top 3 teams.
I say everybody can't be number 1, 2, 3.
Everybody can't be number 1, 2, 3. I don't get this point that you're making about these schools winning. These schools are not winning. They just have funding from all different avenues. But what you're forgetting is these schools have hundreds of thousands of students at one time.
I got a question for you because you twisted my words. So
I'm not twisting your words. I asked you what you said. You told me. I went to go Google it. I'm telling you. I'm not twisting your words. I'm taking exactly what you told me. You told me that winning is the reason that these places are X, Y, Z, and they're not. A lot of these schools suck.
Who did I say that about?
What did you say about?
No, who did I say that about? Who did I say was winning?
North Dakota State University.
The North Dakota State.
Marlon, don't save them.
I go to school. I know. You want me to name you the last 5 quarterbacks from there? You want me to tell you? I can name them.
No, but see, because that's one thing that's good about you. You do a lot of rambling. It covers your own goddamn ears. Because what I was originally, my whole point is this. My whole point is this, right? Because I don't know how we journeyed to the Power 5 and everything. I can even answer that question about the same thing that you just asked.
My point is that what I'm trying to get you to understand is that people are not winning as much as you think they're winning in any conference. In any conference.
Listen, follow me on this. Damn, because even for this, actually, let me school you because I had enough of your talking. For all the teams that you just named, which was Utah, once upon a time, weren't they winning? Because last time I checked, Alex Smith came out that school, correct? Moving on. Moving on.
2003. When's the last time they've been good before that? Before that or after that?
Follow me.
2003 draft. What are you talking about? They had the number 1 player in the country.
Follow me. You had to
talking about. I'm following. You can't drive.
Follow me.
All right, one at a time.
Get it time to shine. UCLA at one point had a winning history team. I can keep going. Oregon at one point had a winning team.
Are they continuing to win?
Listen,
all you're telling me is the teams that win changes. They fluctuate. That's what happens in sports. If it was the same every year, why play the games?
No. I'm gonna find this mute button. Follow me on this one, and we'll get to that.
Marlon. Listen, mute me there, Marlon, because I don't understand. Like I'm trying to you go off on this tangent, and then you make no point at the end of the tangent. Then you tell me to follow you. I can't follow you into the abyss.
Because you keep talking, but you won't follow me. Because I listened to your whole spiel. Did I interrupt you?
I'm gonna be quiet. I'm gonna be quiet, but take me somewhere.
Yeah, I'm taking you somewhere. So actually, I'm gonna make it even easier. All those teams that you just named in the Pac-12, you're absolutely right. They're not doing dirt shit. But at one point in time, they were. At one point in time in football history, they were. Whether it was in the 90s or whether it was in the 2000s, they were. Now the question was about all those other teams in North Dakota State. I know it hurts. What's up?
So Southern wasn't good at one point. Grambling State wasn't great at one. Grambling was great at one point, right?
Sure.
Southern University was good at one point, right?
Yeah.
Texas State was good at one point. So the same.
Who?
Texas State.
No.
Texas State was good at one point.
Oh, no.
You brought up Hampton.
Hampton.
That's the MEAC. I was keeping it in the SWAC.
Oh, my bad.
That's the MEAC. Hampton was good. Like, what I'm saying is, what you're telling me about them being good at one point, that's in any conference you go to. It changes periodically. But the top 4 or the top 3 are always the ones that people talk about. They fluctuate, brother. That's why they play the games.
So the point is, Dion can turn Colorado into top 3 or top half of the conference next year.
Yeah, because the Pac-12 some shit.
Okay, that's all we're saying. That's what it's saying.
Dion's gonna make a bowl game next year.
I'm not talking about.
Dion's not going to be.
I don't know how we got to that. That's the same.
Conversations about Dion.
That's what it's about.
I mean, Dion's gonna be Dion. Dion's gonna. I'll put you like this. I'm about to make a prediction.
Why you putting me on this, man?
Dion might possibly make Shedeur into a Heisman candidate.
And that's another factor I didn't get to. If you think that Dion wasn't thinking about his kid and his kid's ultimate potential in trying to get to the NFL with this move, and you're calling him selfish and he's this and he's selling a dream. Man, I'm selling a dream to who? I got to make sure my kid get there too. He got a kid that was supposed to be.
But that already answered the question about Dion. Dion's going to look out for Dion. Like, he has a kid that was
supposed to be a Power 5 quarterback. He brought his son with him because what would that look like? He not coming with him. So now that he got his feet wet for 2 years, it's like, all right, let's take him against the big boys. Let's display him. Let's showcase him. Let's show him lift this other organization up right in time for him to be draft eligible. If you don't think that has something to do with Dion going to Colorado, you're a new fool. It's bigger than just going to Colorado. Plus, I get facilities now, right? Now I get to test my kid against one of the best conferences in the country and bring in my influence of kids also here. And I was watching the interview. I was watching the press conference the other day. This has been in the works since October 1. This ain't something just happened. It's been in the works since October 1st, right? So if you think that Dion came over here and he's not going to have the same autonomy that he had at Jackson State, you're a fool. That's why it took so long. That's why the news broke, and that's why Dion is doing it. I'm sure they're giving Dion power that he wouldn't have got in many other places. You remember when he first started interviewing for schools before he picked Jackson State, Florida State said no. You remember that, right? Florida State said no. Because he's going to bring his own media team. He's going to bring all this other stuff that you have to be 100% committal to him in order to let him thrive in the way he wants. He's not going anywhere and answering to anybody. When Dion gets there, he's going to do what he wants to do, how he wants to do it. And hopefully it's a winning product on the football field so that he can get what he needs. You got it.
No disagreement.
I don't know what to disagree about. I never disagreed.
I just saying for me. I don't know what you about to say. Go ahead.
I mean, that's all I need to say. I mean, that's nothing to disagree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. That's it. Appreciate you.
I mean, that's like something to good night on right there.
Yeah, it's nothing to disagree.
I mean, at this point, it comes down to show and prove. Dion showed you how to do it. He showed you we get the culture behind the school. We get everything behind the school. We use our partnerships like we always say we need to do to get our leagues, our people further by using our own benefits to help each other out. He did that, and then he pushed it forward, and now we know what to do. He has other NFL starters who are not, like he said, not going to be position coaches, but head coaches, because there's so many HBCUs that need a prominent head coach who has done it before.
Marlon,
it's on us.
I want to answer Ron's question about North Dakota State. I got it. Okay.
Oh,
North Dakota State. This North Dakota State conference that he's talking about is so winning. It's 3 teams that are over 500.
Winning? Guys,
It's 3 teams over 500 in North Dakota State's conference. He's talking about them winning so much.
Bro, you clearly needed someone to talk to today because
There's an 0
you
and
didn't hear
11
me clearly at all.
Marlon, there's an 0 and 11 team in this conference, a 2 and 9 team, 3 and 8, 5 and 6, 5 and 6, 5 and 6, 6 and 5. That's already 7 teams out of the 12. It's North Dakota State and South Dakota State. They go against each other, and whoever wins the game is the champion. Outside of that, nobody else won 7 games.
Then you won Dakota.
Outside of that, nobody else won 7 games over
Guess
here.
what?
But you know, ultimately the thing is this though, what I find entertaining is that you had to Google it.
Hey, you know what? Y'all can have
Ain't
a
nobody
one. Y'all,
arguing
hey,
North
this is a
Dakota
prime
State.
example. This is a prime
wanted the
example
facts,
of
I
a
gave you
one-on-one, 1v1 conversation y'all can have on another podcast.
Yeah,
That's
I'm gonna listen.
We're gonna call it a night on that, folks.
Yeah,
gonna
y'all
call
had
it
that
out.
sidebar.
I'm gonna put Mo in such a chokehold. Ain't made no goddamn sense.
The 1v1 is coming, folks. We're gonna
Right.
sell tickets.
North Dakota
We
1v1.
getting a
Y'all,
ring
y'all
out
debate
here.
I ain't talking about no damn North Dakota.
that.
You said they win.
Top
said
5 pointless winners. Number 1, North
But
Dakota
I'm saying,
State.
I'm saying this. I'm saying attraction, exposure, attraction. That's what attracts these kids.
North Dakota State only started getting exposure after they had a top draft pick.
I'm telling you,
Before
it was
that,
Carson
that's
Wentz.
it. After
They was
Carson
like-
Wentz, that's it.
How am I gonna listen to a person who don't even know the conference? That is not true. That is not true. They've been
Who's
winning
the
for a while.
Who's their other top draft pick?
Hey.
No. Don't get the draft pick confused about them winning. They've been
The
winning
draft
for a
picks
while.
bring attention to the school.
Thank you. Carson Wentz went over there. He
Because
dominated
people
them.
want the potential to go to the league.
That's what it is.
Was they not dominated before Carson Wentz?
Appalachian State's been dominating for years. Do they got draft picks?
Answer the question.
I have no idea because I did
Yeah,
not tune into North Dakota State University football.
Ron,
All right,
cut the shit,
anyways.
Ron. You didn't know North Dakota
Cut it.
State back in time. What were we talking about?
No, 1v1. Next.
Right.
All right, y'all. Let's hit that like button.
If he gonna be late though, I'm gonna have better shit to do.
Listen, man, I gotta put the baby to bed. I'm sorry. It would be late or don't show up at all. I got responsibilities here, man. I want to stay married.
All right.
Agree with that. I'll let you.
All right, man. Y'all peace.
Oh.
Hit the